The Galactic Tribunal chamber stretched into infinity, bathed in cold blue light, its air vibrating with judgment. Ethan Cross, shackled and scarred, knelt on the obsidian floor as alien fleets observed through towering holograms. Judge Kaelith raised his massive hand, his voice echoing like steel grinding against stone. Kaelith said, "Humanity's crimes are countless. For the chaos you've unleashed, the sentence is extinction." Ethan's chest burned, his throat tightened as silence weighed heavy, the eyes of billions piercing his broken frame. Memories of his family's screams seared his mind, the sound of betrayal louder than the judgment itself. His heart pounded, his breath shallow, as despair coiled around his spirit like a serpent. Just as the silence threatened to devour him, a voice slipped into his ear, soft and trembling with forbidden courage. Liora whispered, "They are not just judging you, Ethan. They are judging us all." The tribunal chamber buzzed with silent judgment, but Ethan's mind drifted inward. He saw flashes of fire, his home engulfed in smoke, his daughter's laughter fading into screams. Pain carved deep trenches in his memory. The aliens presented their crimes, each hologram a distorted painting of humanity's darkest moments. Kaelith's voice thundered, "You killed your world, you poisoned your skies, you are unworthy of tomorrow." Ethan's lips trembled, but he forced words past the lump in his throat. Ethan said, "You twist our scars into weapons against us. You fear not what we have done, but what we may become." Silence thickened, broken only by the faint hum of the great machines. Liora's eyes followed him from the shadows, her sorrow a hidden rebellion against the Council's cold decree. Kaelith's crystalline features twisted with disdain as he gestured to towering holograms of human wars. Soldiers marched, bombs fell, and screams echoed as if the tribunal walls themselves carried memory. Kaelith said, "Your history is a stain across the stars." Ethan clenched his fists, chains rattling like a funeral dirge. Ethan said, "You see only our darkness, never our light." A murmur rippled through alien factions, some nodding with venom, others shifting with unease. From the shadows, Marcus Vale, once a decorated officer, now collaborator, smirked coldly. Marcus said, "Better to kneel and live as servants than perish in pride." Rage surged through Ethan, his eyes blazing despite his broken frame. The chamber darkened as evidence shifted to fabrications, false battles humanity never fought, atrocities twisted from truth. Ethan's breath hitched, realization sinking in like ice. He whispered, "This is not justice. This is fear dressed as law." The aliens hissed in disapproval, their voices merging into a storm of contempt. Kaelith's gaze sharpened like a blade. Kaelith said, "Fear is earned. Fear is your legacy." Ethan lowered his head, the weight of billions pressing on his shoulders. Yet in the silence he felt Liora's gaze, soft and unyielding. A reminder that not all voices in the void spoke with hatred. Night fell in the cold cell of obsidian walls, silence broken only by Ethan's ragged breaths. He sat chained, staring at the dim glow of distant stars through barred windows. His body trembled, his spirit bruised but unbroken. Shadows shifted, and Liora emerged, her voice a whisper carved from sorrow. Liora said, "They want your silence, Ethan, but your endurance frightens them more than your words." Ethan lifted his eyes, bruised and weary, yet fire flickered within them. Ethan said, "If they want me broken, they'll have to tear me apart piece by piece." Liora's gaze softened, her sorrow laced with fragile hope. She said, "Then tomorrow will test you in ways they do not expect." The chamber's silence lingered like smoke, yet Ethan's mind drifted to shadows of memory. He remembered the soft warmth of his daughter's laughter before fire swallowed their home. Grief weighed heavier than chains. His heart clawed at hope, refusing to die despite despair. He whispered to himself, "I will not forget you, not even here." Pain was etched deep in his scars, but so too was the memory of love. Kaelith's voice cut through the stillness, merciless and cold. Kaelith said, "Your weakness lies in your sentiment. Emotions are shackles. Ethan raised his gaze, his eyes bruised yet burning with quiet defiance. He said, "It is sentiment that keeps us alive, not chains." The tribunal dimmed as holograms of Earth's broken cities flickered. Ash rained across the projections, skyscrapers burning like candles against the night. Ethan's jaw clenched as ghosts filled the air. He whispered, "Home was never perfect, but it was ours." Marcus Vale stepped forward, smirk curling like venom. Marcus said, "Home is ash, Ethan. Submission is survival." Ethan spat blood onto the floor, chains rattling. He said, "Survival without dignity is death dressed in silence." Murmurs rippled among alien factions, some stirred by his defiance, others snarling in contempt. Liora's gaze softened, her luminous eyes reflecting Ethan's fragile fire. In chains, Ethan felt the weight of his own people's betrayal heavier than Kaelith's judgment. Marcus stood proudly, aligned with the council. Marcus said, "Humanity cannot govern itself without blood. The galaxy will not permit it." Ethan's heart throbbed with anger. He said, "You traded truth for comfort, Marcus, and dressed cowardice as wisdom." Kaelith observed with icy silence, crystalline features flickering in disdain. The factions murmured louder, some alien eyes narrowing with suspicion. Liora's hand curled at her side, restrained by fear, her silence breaking only in her heart. Ethan stared upward, bruised but unyielding. The holograms shifted again, twisting into visions of fabricated wars humanity never fought. Flames licked across alien cities, their destruction falsely laid at Earth's feet. Ethan's throat burned with rage. He shouted, "Lies! You forged truth to bind us!" The crowd hissed, their contempt a rising tide. Kaelith's crystalline form leaned forward, voice booming. Kaelith said, "History is shaped by victors, not beggars." Ethan's chains bit into his wrists as he slammed his fists against the floor. He said, "Then I will not beg, I will stand." Silence froze the chamber, tension sharper than blades. The trial adjourned to silence, leaving Ethan dragged back to his prison cell. He collapsed against obsidian walls, his body trembling yet spirit flickering with embers. Through the barred window, stars glowed like ancient witnesses. Footsteps echoed, soft and hesitant. Liora appeared, her iridescent skin shimmering faintly against shadows. Her voice was low, dangerous even to whisper. Liora said, "You must endure tomorrow. There are truths buried that they fear." Ethan raised his swollen eyes, voice ragged but steady. Ethan said, "Then I will endure. If not for me, then for those they silence." The tribunal resumed, its air thick with the weight of accusation. Holograms unfurled in the chamber, projecting humanity's darkest wars in brutal clarity. Soldiers clashed, bombs fell, and flames devoured cities, twisted into accusations of greed and bloodlust. Kaelith's voice rang sharp, "Every century of your kind is a century of violence." Ethan's breath grew heavier as the ghosts of past battles clawed at him. His voice cracked but rose with iron beneath. Ethan said, "You show only our ashes, but never the hands that carried water through the fire." The crowd stirred uneasily, judgmental eyes flickering with doubt. The chamber darkened, and Marcus Vale stepped forward, his polished uniform gleaming under harsh light. His voice was sharp, practiced, and venomous. Marcus said, "He defends the indefensible. Humanity's cruelty has no equal." Ethan's eyes burned as chains rattled at his wrists. He said, "And yet you betray your own blood for their approval." Murmurs rose among factions, alien whispers sharp with disdain, some intrigued by Ethan's words, others recoiling. Kaelith turned his crystalline gaze toward Marcus with approval, his expression unreadable but cold. The walls of the tribunal hummed with growing unease. The tribunal shifted its focus, displaying fabricated atrocities, scenes of alien worlds raised, falsely attributed to humanity. The projections cast red fire across the chamber, painting Ethan's scars in crimson. He shouted, "This is deceit. You twist shadows into proof." The audience hissed, their disapproval a storm of voices. Kaelith's tone sliced like ice. Kaelith said, "Truth is what the galaxy accepts, not what you remember." Ethan pressed his forehead to the cold floor, not in surrender but in fury. He whispered, "Then I must survive long enough to expose your lies." That night, Ethan lay in the darkness of his cell, his breath shallow, his mind burning with rage and fear. The silence pressed heavy until a faint shimmer broke it. Liora emerged from the shadows, her luminous skin glowing faintly. Her voice was soft, yet dangerous in its risk. Liora said, "The trial is poisoned. What they show is crafted to end you." Ethan raised his bruised face, his voice steady despite exhaustion. Ethan said, "Then I must endure, no matter what they throw." Her eyes carried sorrow as she whispered, "Endurance is what they fear most." The following dawn, the tribunal hall thundered with cold authority. Kaelith stood tall, his crystalline features gleaming like jagged ice. He raised a skeletal hand. Kaelith said, "Words are not enough. Tomorrow, ordeal will prove your weakness." Ethan's stomach churned, his chains rattling with the weight of coming torment. Marcus smirked from his place among the judges, his betrayal cutting deeper than any blade. Ethan whispered to himself, "Then let them test me. They will see what fear cannot erase." The factions erupted in murmurs, curiosity and doubt colliding like sparks in dry tinder. The tribunal summoned Ethan into a new chamber, vast and brutal, walls carved from obsidian blades. Chains were stripped from his arms, only to be replaced by iron cuffs, burning with alien energy. Kaelith's voice thundered, "The ordeal begins. You will endure or you will perish." Ethan's knees quivered, his body still broken, yet he forced himself upright. He said, "Then let the galaxy see what humanity endures." Alien murmurs echoed like storms as the first trial began. A corridor of shifting gravity and searing light meant to crush him. His every breath came like fire, yet each step forward was defiance itself. Gravity shifted violently, crushing Ethan's chest until his ribs threatened to snap. He staggered forward, sweat dripping, vision blurring as heat waves shimmered like fire. Alien judges watched coldly, unmoved by his suffering. Marcus Vale smirked, his voice dripping with poison. Marcus said, "See how quickly he breaks. Humanity is frail." Ethan gasped, blood pooling at his lips, yet his voice carried through the torment. Ethan said, "Frailty is not the same as surrender." Each step forward was agony, each breath a war, but his fire refused extinction. The factions leaned closer, unease growing. The second ordeal brought Ethan to his knees. Blades of light erupted from the floor, slicing across his arms and legs without mercy. He roared, the sound half fury, half survival. Kaelith's gaze never wavered, his crystalline eyes like frozen stars. Kaelith said, "Strength is meaningless without control." Ethan clenched his jaw, blood running freely, his teeth bared in defiance. Ethan said, "Control is choosing to rise when rising should be impossible." His voice cracked, but the echo silenced the chamber. Some alien eyes flickered with unease, as truth cut through their spectacle. When the trial paused, Ethan collapsed against obsidian walls, body shredded but spirit alight. The betrayer stepped forward, his polished uniform gleaming with cruelty. Marcus said, "You fight like a beast, not a man. This is why you deserve extinction." Ethan spat blood at his feet, his eyes blazing. Ethan said, "Better a beast who resists than a coward who kneels." Marcus's smirk faltered, bitterness flickering in his gaze. Kaelith studied both men, silent but calculating. In shadows, Liora's sorrow deepened, her glow dimmed by fear of what truths remained unspoken. The ordeal reached its cruelest moment. Chains suspended Ethan above searing energy fields, his body stretched to breaking. Kaelith said, "This is endurance without hope." Ethan screamed, the sound tearing across the chamber, but his voice carried defiance. Ethan said, "You can break my body, but not the will that carries my kind." Suddenly Marcus leaned close, his words dripping venom. Marcus said this was never about justice, it was always about fear. Ethan's heart froze, betrayal sharp as any blade. The factions erupted, chaos simmering as the conspiracy began to reveal itself. The tribunal chamber burned with tension as Ethan, bloodied and chained, dragged himself upright. His voice trembled but carried beyond pain. Ethan said, "You show our scars, yet forget our sacrifices. Mothers who buried sons, fathers shielding daughters, those who gave their last breath for love." His words rippled through the hall like fire licking dry wood. Aliens leaned forward, their silent judgment cracking with unease. Kaelith's crystalline eyes narrowed, but his silence betrayed discomfort. Ethan's chest heaved as he continued, "We are more than the ashes you show. We are the fire that refuses to die." The silence cracked as Ethan's words echoed. Some factions whispered, doubt seeping through their ranks. Kaelith's voice erupted like thunder. Kaelith said, "Words are smoke, they burn and vanish." Ethan lifted his chin, defiance radiating through every scar. Ethan said, "Words are sparks, and sparks ignite fires you cannot control." Murmurs swelled, spreading like an unseen storm. Marcus Vale sneered from his station, yet his smirk faltered as the crowd shifted. For the first time, Ethan's defiance outshone his chains. The tribunal itself felt shaken, as though stone and steel could feel the weight of truth. The holograms flickered, unstable under the storm of doubt. Ethan's voice rose, stronger with each breath. Ethan said, "You call us chaos, yet from ruin we rise again. Break us, and we endure. Bury us, and we climb back to the light." Gasps echoed, alien eyes flickering with emotions once hidden. Liora stepped forward slightly, her iridescent glow trembling like flame in wind. For a heartbeat, she whispered to herself, unheard but resolute, "This is why they fear you." The chamber felt alive, no longer frozen, but rattled with truth pressing against its walls. Then came the moment that silenced all doubt. A figure was dragged forward, the innocent, frail and trembling, eyes altered by alien cruelty. Their gaze locked onto Ethan's, fragile but unwavering. Ethan's voice broke, "You should not be here." The innocent whispered, "I am here because they fear you more than me." Chaos erupted as the innocent threw themselves before an attack meant for Ethan, their body collapsing in light and sorrow. Ethan roared, a sound that tore through silence like lightning. His voice thundered, "We are not asking for mercy. We are demanding recognition." The chamber was chaos, factions shouting, some demanding extermination, others shaken by doubt. Ethan stood bloodied, his chains clinking as he raised his voice above the storm. Ethan said, "We are the spark you tried to smother. We are the fire that grows stronger in shadow. You cannot silence us because we speak in every heart you try to control." His eyes locked with Kaelith's crystalline glare, unflinching. The galaxy watched, no longer silent, but trembling as if a storm had broken its sky. The verdict had not been spoken, but its weight was already shattering. The tribunal chamber quaked under the weight of chaos, factions clashing with words sharp as blades. Kaelith's crystalline hand slammed against the dais, silence falling like ice. His voice resonated through the void. Kaelith said, "The tribunal delivers its final decree. Humanity shall be exterminated." Ethan's body shook, chains digging deep into his flesh, yet his eyes locked with the judge. He whispered, not with despair but with quiet defiance, "You condemn us because you fear us." Around him, alien factions erupted once more, voices colliding in waves of rage and rebellion. The hall became a storm no verdict could silence. Ethan was dragged toward the execution platform, chains scraping across the obsidian floor. Alien guards tightened their grip, forcing him forward. The crowd erupted, some crying for blood, others demanding mercy. Liora stepped from the shadows, her iridescent glow defiant against the cold light. She shouted, "This is no justice, it is fear disguised as law." Gasps rippled, shock tearing through the silence. Ethan turned his bruised face toward her, his voice breaking. Ethan said, "Your whisper kept me alive. Now your voice may ignite them all." Her sorrow transformed into resolve, her defiance echoing louder than the tribunal's decree. Marcus Vale stepped forward, his polished uniform gleaming even as the chamber trembled. He said, "End this spectacle. His death will restore order." Ethan's lips curled into a bitter smile, blood staining his teeth. Ethan said, "Order built on lies collapses faster than truth in chains." Alien murmurs grew sharper, factions breaking into violent arguments. Some called Ethan dangerous, others called him necessary. Kaelith's crystalline eyes glared coldly, but cracks formed in the silence that once protected his authority. Ethan's chest heaved with ragged breaths, but his spirit towered taller than any prison wall. The chamber erupted as factions turned on one another, reptilian warriors clashing with insectoid envoys, luminous beings shouting over mechanical voices. Chaos thundered louder than judgment. Ethan raised his voice, cutting through the storm. Ethan said, "You cannot erase us, you cannot bury us, because we are already inside you, in your fear, your memory, your fire." His voice cracked but carried, echoing like prophecy across billions of watching eyes. Chains rattled, but his words soared beyond steel. The tribunal's power faltered, its verdict drowned beneath the rebellion of voices it tried to control. Ethan was forced onto the execution platform, chains digging into his skin, light burning around him. Yet the chamber refused silence. Voices clashed, truths unraveled, and rebellion bloomed in every corner. Kaelith's judgment echoed hollow, drowned beneath the fury of billions. Liora's voice cut through the chaos, trembling but resolute. Liora said, "The galaxy has seen your fear. That is the only verdict here." Ethan raised his head, every scar burning like fire. He whispered, "Then let them remember not our end, but our warning." His words lingered, not as surrender, but as a spark destined to grow. The verdict was shattered by chaos, and though Kaelith roared for silence, the chamber refused obedience. Alien factions battled with voices, their unity fractured beyond repair. Ethan stood on the execution platform, chains glowing with cruel energy. His body trembled, yet his gaze pierced through the storm. Ethan said, "You cannot end us here. You cannot kill what already burns in the memory of your fear." Liora's glow radiated brighter, her sorrow twisting into strength. Around them, confusion consumed the tribunal, its authority collapsing like crumbling stone beneath the weight of defiance. The guards hesitated, their claws twitching, uncertain whether to obey Kaelith's decree or the riot of voices demanding justice. Marcus Vale shouted, "Strike him down before doubt spreads further." But his words faltered as several factions turned against him, their alien eyes blazing with fury. Ethan's voice cut through the storm, raw but unbroken. Ethan said, "Strike me if you must, but my death will not silence what has already begun." The chamber shook as violence spread, symbols of judgment cracking on the walls. For the first time, Ethan felt the tribunal's power falter beneath his endurance. Kaelith's crystalline form flickered with rage, his voice echoing like shattering glass. Kaelith said, "This trial is over. Humanity will burn." Yet his words failed to silence the storm. Ethan staggered forward, chains rattling with every step. "Aye." His voice rose, carrying like thunder. Ethan said, "You fear us not for our crimes, but for our resilience. We rise even from the ashes you scatter." The factions erupted, some roaring with hatred, others with conviction. The tribunal's walls trembled, as if the galaxy itself recoiled from the weight of truth spoken aloud. The storm raged until the tribunal's authority fractured completely. Alien ships in orbit flickered across holograms, their captains divided, their loyalties torn. Ethan stood bloodied but unyielding, his words striking deeper than weapons. Ethan said, "We do not ask for mercy. We demand our place among you, carved in fire and blood, not erased in silence." Liora's luminous eyes brimmed with sorrowful pride, her defiance no longer hidden. The factions clashed, chaos spilling like wildfire, yet the truth had already rooted itself. Humanity was no longer prey, but a warning carved into galactic memory. Silence fell at last, not from Kaelith's command, but from exhaustion of chaos. Humanity was spared, not with triumph, but with scars carved deep. Ethan walked slowly from the platform, his chains broken, his body trembling with wounds that would never heal. Alien factions stared in stunned silence, their judgment replaced with unease. Ethan paused, his voice carrying like prophecy through the chamber. Ethan said, "They wanted a verdict. What they got was a warning." His words lingered long after he vanished into shadows, leaving the galaxy scarred, haunted, and forever changed.